One of the world's most evil men and dictators was Adolf Hitler, the Führer of Nazi Germany. He was a man who dreamed of his empire conquering large swathes of Europe. Hitler was in charge of the German military, which was considered one of his biggest failures, as he would order huge offensives with the German army, rampaging into foreign lands in winter and suffering heavily. But he ultimately lost the Second World War, and inside of his underground bunker in Berlin, he would decide to take his own life. He had heard about the fate of his friend Benito Mussolini and the public display of his body in a Milan square, and with this he would order his remains to be burned following his death. It's known that part of his remains, including his jaw and skull, are inside of a Moscow archive. However, there is a great deal about Adolf Hitler which remains untold or is not widely reported and known about. Join us today as we look at strange things you did not know about Adolf Hitler, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Adolf Hitler was obsessed with his master race, which were known as the Aryans. His ideas for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race which were genetically superior led to the slaughter of millions inside of concentration camps, and those people who were killed were considered Untermensch or racially inferior. But the Nazis were known for promoting health-conscious ideas and policies, and they championed youngsters getting regular exercise inside of the Hitler Youth, a group for boys which would later become an auxiliary force in World War II. Hitler wanted a healthy nation to eventually conquer the world, and for women to have as many children for the empire as possible, but Hitler himself lived a very healthy lifestyle with regards to his food. He was a man who was teetotal, and he never consumed alcohol, despite rubbing shoulders with men who indulged heavily in heavy drinking and parties, and he was also a vegetarian. He was known for eating large amounts of pea soup, and he did suffer also with a lot of problems with digestion, to the point where he was prescribed a huge amount of pills and potions by his personal doctor, Theodor Morell. In fact, his personal doctor would give him stronger medication, and he also began to inject the Dictator of Nazi Germany with a cocktail of different drugs, such as methamphetamine or meth, oxycodone, morphine, to ease his pain, and even at a time cocaine. He was given Pervitin, which was eventually planned to be supplied to German soldiers, as it was said to give users a superhuman strength and a boost of self-esteem. But Hitler was regularly taking these drugs, and drug use it's believed was rife within the Nazi party, as his friend Hermann Göring would also be addicted to morphine. But there is footage at the end of the war of Hitler shaking during his final on-camera appearances, and some historians have debated whether this was Parkinson's disease, or in fact withdrawal from the drugs he had been taking for so long, as they were now difficult to get hold of at the end of the war. Another strange part of Hitler's life was the relationships he had with women, including his niece, Geli Raubal. In the early days of his political career, his younger niece was a constant companion, and the pair were involved in a romantic relationship. However, Hitler was possessive, and he would keep the young girl under lock and key practically, but then inside of his apartment in Munich in 1931, at the age of 23, the young girl was found dead from a gunshot, having shot herself with Hitler's own pistol. The pair had been heard having a huge argument, but then the body of Raubal was found, and many at the time accused Hitler of murder, but this was covered up by the Nazis, and a meeting of high-ranking Nazis was even convened following the death to see how best to deal with this media nightmare. Later, Eva Braun, a woman much younger than Hitler, would capture his affections, and she would also die inside the Führer bunker following marrying the dictator the evening before. Despite being born into a rather poor family, Hitler would throughout his life amass a huge personal fortune. He became one of the wealthiest men in the world at the time, and much of this wealth was given to him from huge donations from different corporations, and he also siphoned money off from the Nazi Party and his government. Following his arrest during the Munich Putsch, the failed attempt to seize control in Munich, Hitler would write Mein Kampf, his autobiography, and when he became Chancellor, he then ordered the government to buy copies of his book to give as wedding presents to newly married couples, and then further policies were brought in forcing households to own a copy of his book. Because of this, he received a colossal amount of royalties from the book, and he got very rich. He also refused to pay income tax, and he then began to collect and steal art from all around the world. He had a grandeur to his lifestyle, and he would have the best furniture, and would also have many homes built for him, such as the mountain retreat the Berghof, complete with the eagle's nest. But it's estimated that his net worth today would be anything from between $5 billion to up to $100 billion. But of course a lot of this was obtained through theft and suffering. However, Adolf Hitler could have easily not have existed. He was also known as Adolf Schicklgruber, or Adolf Hitler. His father, Alois, was born out of wedlock to Maria Anna Schicklgruber, and he was given her surname. But then at the age of 40, Hitler's father adopted the surname of his stepfather, Johann Georg Hitler. Some believe that this was his biological father, but on legal documents Hitler was given a new family name, and it's not known why this was changed. Alois Hitler married twice and had several children before he married Clara Pölzl, Hitler's mother. Despite Hitler having a difficult relationship with his father, he was very much a mother's boy, and he was reportedly heartbroken following her death from breast cancer. But the name Hitler could have easily been something else. There are also many rumours regarding Hitler's service in the German army during the First World War. Despite being Austrian, he had a great affinity with the German people, and his experiences during the conflict were difficult. He said he served as a runner between the trenches, and many historians have debated that he actually saw very little frontline action, and instead was a runner between regimental headquarters, which were miles back from the front line. This meant that his life was not in danger, and this was something he would later oppose. But he was wounded during the First Battle of the Somme, and also in 1918 he was blinded during a mustard gas attack, and he suffered from hysterical blindness. It was whilst he was recovering that he learned of the German surrender, and he was outraged. But when he died, he was known to have been wearing the Iron Cross First Class medal he received during the First World War, and he claimed he'd received this as he carried orders under immense fire. But the reality was that these were given out at the end of the war as a token, really, and some historians have debated that this was actually given to him as he got on well with some officers and served for a number of years, which was a big difference from the reasons he said he was given it. Much of Hitler's early life and formative years before the Second World War was spent trying to make it as an artist in Vienna. He was rejected by the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, and it was said he was not great at painting people. But he lived in poverty in a boarding house, and he tried to make money selling postcards on the street. He was in a sense homeless, but his devotion and love for art continued throughout his whole life. He loved work from classical Greece and Rome, but he hated Impressionism and Cubism, and he regarded much art as degenerative, and works by artists such as Pablo Picasso were later exhibited in an exhibition which was meant to provoke disgrace and shame, but instead it had the opposite effect. But Hitler would, during the war, order the looting of thousands of pieces of art, with the biggest art heist in history taking place. He planned to take all of these works and to exhibit them in a huge museum in his hometown of Linz, Austria, but still today many of these artworks have yet to be discovered. One of the strangest awards given to Hitler throughout his life was that in 1938, Time magazine named him Man of the Year. But he was also nominated shockingly for a Nobel Peace Prize. A Swedish legislator nominated him for the award initially as a joke, but then it caused outrage, and the nomination was then withdrawn. But one man who won the award criticised Hitler years earlier, and with this Hitler banned all Germans from accepting a Nobel Peace Prize, and he then created the German National Prize for Art and Science as an alternative. With this, 3 Germans who were awarded Nobel Prizes were forced to decline their awards by Hitler during this time. But much of Hitler's brutality and evil relates to his policies and treatments of prisoners who were sent to concentration camps. There were great efforts to detach Hitler from the orders of the final solution. However, it's believed that Hitler himself never visited a concentration camp where many of his brutal policies were being carried out. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, would visit and inspect the camps, but Hitler would never visit sites such as Dachau, Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.